When I need answers about anything to do with personal growth, I go straight to my mom and my aunt. Here they are, Priscilla Babin and Tina Gilliatt with the sister sauce.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tina Gilliatt, and I'm here with my incredible sister, the beautiful and talented Priscilla Gilliatt. Where did that come from? Priscilla Babbitt.
You adopted me.
I think of you as my child all the time. You're so much younger than me.
Not that much.
I don't know. When I was 12 and you were a baby, people used to say, "Oh, that's a cute little baby, but you're an awfully young mom." And I'd be like, "Really?" And I know you remember the time we went to go pick up your wedding dress, and the lady at the bridal store said, "Oh, you brought your mother." And I wanted to smack her in the face, but
Well, to be fair, when I was getting married, I looked like I was 12. So,
that's true. That's true. Well, this is exciting. We are in episode 51 this week, and we have a great episode planned with a special guest, which we'll talk about in a minute. But do you have anything special going on right now?
I don't have, do I have anything special? Uh, my mind just went completely blank.
That's okay. I know you've had a very busy week with well, last weekend was super busy. Did y'all have
Yeah,
fun at City Park night?
we did. I rode rides and
You
I didn't
did.
throw up or get dizzy or fall over.
What
So,
was your favorite ride
fun.
at City Park?
Oh gosh. I don't know what it's called. There's this one that has like these branches that come off, and there's like three seats that fit
Like
two
a
people.
spider or
We'll see if
something?
it's a little kind of, well, it might be. I don't know. I'd have to look it up now. I want to take up the time to look it up. But there's like one branch comes off and it has three little cars, three little seats that are hanging, and another branch. And I don't remember how many branches of the thing there are, but each branch thing spins, the group of seats spins, and the individual seats kind of turn. So, and then the whole thing turns. Well, I guess the individual seats don't, but like the whole thing turns, and then the each section turns so that you're going around and around. And I rode on it twice, and I sat with each of my two big kids, because the littler kid, I say littler kids, they're high schoolers, but they each went off with their own friends. And so
Of
me and the two
course.
big kids had grown up fun. And my overactive sense of fairness, I had to ride things, with each of the kids. So me and Renee rode, and then me and Nico rode, and it was fun because we'd sit opposite each other. So when I was riding with Renee, we could see Nico over on the other one. And every time we went around, we'd yell, hey, Nico, and then we did it to Renee. Well, I was yelling, Nico didn't want to yell, but he was squishing me. And I said, oh, it's enforced hugs. I get to have contact with my big kids and snuggle
And
with
I'm
them by
sure
foot.
Nico rolled his eyes adequately
Oh,
at all of
yes.
that.
I'm surprised his eyeballs didn't come right out of his head, but yeah. But we had fun. It was a good time, and this week has been also busy. Stuff just keeps popping up, and it's like, I don't know. It's senior year for Clover, so there's going to be stuff. Talking to Jeanne later, y'all will see. I've got enough to be getting on with, but we've got uh we've got a lot of stuff coming up this year with all the senior stuff, so I'm trying not to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, I know. And I stress over and I'm like, I'm not going to have a break until 3 more weeks from now. And it's like, come on, it's really not that bad. But I mean, I don't even know how I managed working a 40-hour-a-week job for as long as I did, because now I don't have enough time to do anything. And I just have all these part-time things I'm doing, but it's just so
Yeah.
disjointed. But I have news I wanted to share. As you know, the children's book that I wrote and mom illustrated many years ago finally came to fruition and published and all that good stuff. And I ordered 100 copies, and those are coming on Tuesday. So I'm excited. I'm already booking some opportunities to read to kids in school and sell the book. And it's not going to be like a huge moneymaker for me, but it's just a blessing to finally get it out there. I wanted to share the book. It's called The Adventures of Chloe and Joey, Paul's Problem in the Story of Daniel. And of course, it was inspired by Clover and Joey when they were very little. And I talked about how Chloe and Joey shared the story of Daniel to help their friend Paul, who was going through a problem. So it's all written in rhyme, sort of like Dr. Seussy kind of style. But I'm excited, and I'm going to share in the show notes the link that people can go and learn more about it and to order a copy. So I'll just put that out there. And I know you have some hot sauce you want to share.
I do. It's just a little something to think about. This is something I saw online, like everything else I always tell y'all about. And just to set it up, you got to think about video games. This is about video games, but how something in it that relates to real life. And I don't know if anybody on here is avid video game player, but I think everybody has seen enough people play video games that this might make sense. This says, if I've learned anything from video games, it is that when you meet enemies, it means you're going in the right direction. So I thought that was pretty inspiring and thought-provoking that,
Yes, very profound.
you don't have a clear path, to success. There's going to be struggles, is what that says to me. Is that if you're not struggling, you're not making progress, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't see the word.
I've always kind of had that philosophy. We had a friend, Brady Roberts. He's passed away, bless his heart, but he was just an amazing, talented musician that used to play at our coffee house when we had it. And I remember he said to me one time when I was telling him about all the problems we had with the restaurant, and we really wanted to make a ministry of it, and he said, you know what, Tina? He said, I think that that's a sign that you're doing the right thing, that you're going in the right way, just like you said. And he said, I think that Christians need to say to themselves, if I think I'm a Christian and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, but I'm not encountering any pushback or strife, then maybe I need to rethink my path and check that. And I'm not so sure that I'm a strong believer in spiritual warfare. I do believe that in order to get your message out there, you're going to encounter strife. But yeah, I like that. It's such a great analogy, the video game thing. Wow.
Mhm.
Pretty cool. Well, we have an amazing guest with us for our meat sauce today. It's Menopause Awareness Month, and Global Menopause Awareness Day is coming up. And we have with us today the menopause guru herself. Jeanne Andrus, the menopause guru, lives what she teaches. Coming into perimenopause, she had no idea what to expect, and she certainly didn't think that she was that old. Her journey, which began with emotional upheaval, smoothed out when she started concentrating on her own health and happiness and learning what was going on in her own body. And what followed for her was a deep dive into what science knew about menopause. She learned how our hormones change and how holistic practices could support our bodies so that we didn't suffer needlessly with the symptoms. That's just a little background about Jeanne from her website, menopause.guru. And she is with us today to give Priscilla and I some advice, but also to share some of her wealth of knowledge. She's written tons of books, or a number of books, I should say. And she has practiced as a menopause coach and counselor. And I would love you to welcome Jeanne Andrus. Welcome, Jeanne.
Hi, Tina. It's so good to see you. Hi, Priscilla.
Hi. Welcome.
Well, Jeanne, we are anxious to talk to you. You are looking at two ladies in menopause somewhat. Priscilla's
Getting there.
12 years younger than me and starting to go through
Okay.
all of that.
And technically, I think I'm still technically late perimenopause. I'm just now to where things are getting really wonky with my cycle. So,
Wonky, that technical term.
yes.
So that sort of leads into, let's go with the definition of menopause and perimenopause and postmenopause, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, that'd be great.
Because the thing is that we don't get these definitions very often. So unless you actually go out looking for the definitions and maybe asking your doctor, who will not tell you necessarily until you ask the question.
Mhm.
So perimenopause means near menopause. Menopause is defined as the day you have been without a cycle for a full year. Now, if you have had your uterus removed or if you've had your uterus removed and still have your ovaries, you are still ovulating. You just might not know it. So it's a doctor that's got to diagnose that. But for those of us who kept our uterus, it's that 1 year and it's only one day. Menopause is 1 day long. So why is it so much trouble? Well, it's so much trouble because we use the term loosely to define the whole thing from start to finish. So perimenopause used to be thought of as that year in which we didn't have any periods. So that just that period of time that we were waiting for the final day. But now we know that it starts way, way earlier, as much as 10 years earlier, that you start losing ovulation on a regular basis. So some months you may ovulate, other months you may not. Some months you might have a period. Other times it gets wonky, long, short, light, heavy, all kinds of different ways that it might show up. And it's all part of that perimenopause, where your body is no longer has an adequate supply of viable eggs. So an egg starts to mature and then it's no good, so it sort of falls apart. And that's what happens. You have an anovulatory period and you just keep having these anovulatory periods more and more frequently until you don't have any period at all. The other side of menopause, you have postmenopause. And guess how long that goes on?
For the rest of your life.
Bingo. Bingo. And it takes about 2 to 5 years, depending on you, to sort of have everything settle down and get into the point where your body is pretty happy with the level of hormones that you have, for the most part. But you can still take yourself back into symptoms especially by stress, by cortisol, using too much cortisol, because cortisol, progesterone, and estrogen, your female hormones, all use the same precursors, and your body prioritizes making cortisol. So if you need cortisol because you're under stress, then it's going to make cortisol and not make your residual amounts of progesterone and estrogen. So all of a sudden, here you are, things are going along, and then the normal, typical American all hell breaks loose, either in your job or in your family, or you could be having some kind of a stressful period in your life, and all of a sudden those hot flashes come back, or you start getting a lot of dry skin and itchiness, or you get a lot of anxiety and irritability that feel like what was happening to you 5 years ago, and now it's come back and you're like, why did this happen?
Oh my gosh.
because your body does not have it doesn't have that regular cycle to produce the progesterone and estrogen. So it's using what it's got to make cortisol.
Yeah.
This is what I call the CPE, or the cortisol progesterone estrogen axis. And it's why about 60 to 70% of the symptoms that we have, and there are, if you've ever seen this, the site 34 symptoms, that's a lie. There are over 100 symptoms that I have identified that come from this change in our hormones and change in the way our body is having periods. So it's a big thing.
Yeah. Well, you hit on something, the symptoms, and one of the things that Priscilla and I both have struggled with is there are other things going on that cause certain symptoms. And we're like, okay, now I am post-menopausal for 8 years.
Right.
And 2016 was, I had been without a period for 1 year, but I am always experiencing menopause symptoms. But as you know, you're familiar with my life, I have a lot of stress. And so now that brings up a lot. But one of the things, I guess, one of the challenges, and Priscilla, you can add on or correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly for you, but I know one of the challenges for me is like, okay, is this menopause, or is this just me being ADHD, or is this me being grieving because of my losses, or is this me stressing over my husband, or what, so that's the situation. So is there a way that or does it matter? Do we just need to treat the symptoms?
So here's the thing. And I do know your story. I know your story fairly well. As we've been friends for a long time, and I see your stuff on Facebook all the time. And even though we haven't seen each other in a while, I do keep up with what's going on in your life to some extent. And so I would say that most of what's happening in your particular situation, and in so many situations, my situations. Last year I had a real big thing happen, and since then my cortisol levels have been higher than normal. And so I'm feeling those symptoms as a result of not being able probably to balance cortisol, progesterone, and estrogen, the CPE axis. And that's probably what's happening with you. Now, do you worry about symptoms? It sort of depends on what they are. There are some symptoms that can be pretty dangerous. Things like prolapse, uterine prolapse, or anal prolapse, or vaginal prolapse, or bladder prolapse, urinary. So those are places where the muscles have weakened in your pelvic floor, and they weaken because you don't have enough estrogen to keep them supple and strong. That's not a good thing. That's definitely get me to the doctor, get this fixed. And it's also for most women, there are topical estrogens you can use vaginally and in that area of your body and they don't travel. So if you've got a risk for breast cancer, most doctors will prescribe a vaginal estrogen for you, even though you have a risk for breast cancer. It's not, because it doesn't travel. It doesn't leave the area. And that helps those muscles maintain their tone. Kegels, well done Kegels are also very good for that. So those are dangerous. One of the other symptoms that often accompanies this CPE axis being out of whack, way more cortisol, not enough progesterone, not enough estrogen, is heart palpitations. So you may be sitting there and feeling, oh my God, my heart just went. Does this happen to you, Katina? And then you wind up, you freak out, you go to the emergency room. Believe me, I've been there. And you're like freaking out and you're saying, what the heck is going on with me? And the cardiologist orders a Holter monitor and all kinds of tests. And you wind up, especially if you're in that period, 60 to 65, where you don't have Medicare, you wind up with all kinds of bills from the hospital. And they walk away and they say, nothing's wrong with you. I don't know why you're having those.
Because they don't know anything.
and whole nother topic. We're going to be here a while, girls. But okay, so here's the thing. Yes, you need to have it looked at because heart disease and heart attacks are one of the major causes of death in women at this age. However, these weird things that happen aren't dangerous at all. So what do? The thing you don't do is panic. And in fact, if you have a cardiologist and you can get to them in a reasonable time frame, you can say, oh, I had these weird little palpitations. I'm going to call my cardiologist first thing in the morning and set an appointment, rather than running to the emergency room in the middle of it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, this means it's good to have regular health care. And no, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, doctors. The American medical system, the Western medical model, has us with a primary care physician or PA or nurse practitioner, whatever you like, and then a whole bunch of specialists. And you only go to a specialist if you've got a problem. So yes, I have heart issues. They're inherited. Yay! So I have a cardiologist. But our specialists don't get any training in menopause, except for the OBGYNs. And even then, I talked to an OBGYN not too long ago, and in her regular training, she's done some specialized training in menopause, but in her normal med school residence, all of that training, she got maybe one class in menopause.
Wow.
The primary stuff they get, OBGYNs, is birthing. And then they get the abnormalities. They get the breast cancer, the uterine cancer, the ovarian cancer. They get the ectopic pregnancies and the fertilities. The fertility stuff is even bigger. They don't get what's happening to your body in menopause. I know, I've always known more than my gynecologists about what's going on in my body. I teach them because we just don't know. The other specialists, the cardiologists, the neurologists, the nephrologists, the liver guys, even the endocrinologists who you'd think, but they know insulin. That's what they're there for, is diabetes. And that's all they do all day long. So they don't remember this stuff. What does that mean? It means that when you go to a doctor, you need to be very specific with them. you need to tell them that you believe that this could be a symptom of menopause. And you don't have those, you don't know the list. It's in my book. So I wrote a book called I Just Want to Be Me Again. It's my primer for menopause. It's available at menopauseBooks.com. You want just the list of symptoms? menopause.guru/symptoms. And you can sign up and I will send you the chapter that has all my list of symptoms. So you know, oh, I'm having this symptom. I'm having GERD, acid reflux. I'm having I'm having tinnitus or tinnitus, ringing in the ears. I'm having clumsiness. All of a sudden, I'm clumsy. What the heck is going on? I can't walk across the room without tripping. It's a symptom. Vertigo. It's a symptom. So knowing this, you can walk into the doctor's office. You walk into the neurologist because your PA, your primary care sent you to the neurologist because, clumsiness, maybe you've got a brain tumor. Relax, number one, relax, because it probably isn't. Just remember, 50% of the population goes through menopause. 1/1000th, way less than that gets a brain tumor. So what's the odds? Is it menopause or is it something more dangerous? The odds are it's menopause. And what that allows you to do is relax. It allows you to just say, this is probably perfectly normal, but I'm going to go see someone anyway. I'm going to check. I'm going to check on it. Now, there's some things that are just like obnoxious and pretty normal, like insomnia. 90% of the women go through insomnia for extended periods of time during perimenopause through the end of their life. Mostly it's these hormonal changes. Okay, I've talked a lot.
I was just going to say we should have some kind of a system that every time you say a symptom that either Priscilla or I have, it pops up a star on our window.
It would be like fireworks, though.
I mean,
John, I have a question.
Cool.
Tina mentioned before, there are these comorbidities, as they call them, where we might have, and I know you had a whole episode about menopause and ADHD. You interviewed Danielle, and this is a big struggle for me. Tina's ADHD. I don't know. It manifests differently in different people, and everybody's levels of symptoms are different. And mine are like way over the top right now. Like I'm ridiculous. I broke 3 wine glasses last week, not intentionally. I like my wine glasses. So I was drinking out of a juice glass last night, but
that's what that was about.
There's other stuff. There's other things.
Mardi Gras cups.
Yeah. I was wondering, because you mentioned vertigo and tinnitus or tinnitus. I've looked that up to try and figure out how to pronounce it. I've heard it both.
I hear it both ways. So
it makes me crazy. But I've recently came across some information about low ferritin and causing low iron, and how those are symptoms of that as well. Is that one of those comorbidities that, like, the iron?
So then now I have to ask about your periods, because are you having heavy periods?
I normally do. I am currently awaiting one, and it's late, so I don't know.
Okay, so here's the thing. Women can have heavy periods and long periods. So I have talked to women who have been having a period. This is obnoxious, but it's true. 6 to 8 weeks of nonstop period.
Wow.
I get it.
Holy
Yeah.
Lord.
And they're
Priscilla's
heavy.
starting to feel blessed.
Okay. Other people, it doesn't happen to. So this is the way we're different. And that's one of the reasons that most of my work is done one-on-one, because what happens to you might not happen to Tina, might not happen to me, might not happen to someone else. But if you're having heavy periods, anemia is a symptom
Oh,
because you're losing blood. So
interesting.
during that time, you probably are wanting to take a little supplemental iron or add, Tina's going to love this, salmon to your diet. We were talking about salmon before we started recording. And what salmon, spinach, high iron foods, so that you're getting that necessary iron.
Okay.
And that can help some of this stuff. Now let's talk about ADHD, because I see ADHD being prescribed, being diagnosed and being prescribed for in massive quantities all of a sudden. It's like every doctor in the world figured out that women in their 40s and 50s display the signs of ADHD. Now, I'm going to say that most bright people get pieces of ADHD all their lives because they're interested in the world. And Tina, this I know of you. The world interests you. You pick up on these things and these things and these things. I've done it all my life. We also, as women, we have the ability to multitask between the time that we go through puberty and the time that we hit menopause. And the reason we do is, if you think back to, let's get into the anthropology side of this stuff, because this is where I love to go back and look. If you think about us as hunter-gatherer tribes people, women would have been pregnant, nursing, raising toddlers, and taking care of old people most of their lives. There's some evidence that women helped on these big, massive hunts where they drove the buffalo off the cliffs, things like that. But for most of their lives, they were not capable of going on long treks chasing down a deer until it fell of exhaustion and you could spear it. That was the job of the men, because they weren't gravid, they weren't pregnant, they weren't nursing an infant, they didn't have toddlers to watch. So the women mostly were localized to the camp area, right? Camp chores are not something that, like, the men were out chasing down meat, straight line, very straight line, very focused, very nonstop kind of activity. Whereas the women were doing, it feels a little like housework. You start the food, you go check on the children, you go stir the laundry and hang it up or whatever, or beat it or whatever you're doing. You go check on the old people, make sure they're okay. You go over here and you do another chore over here. Maybe you take a few stitches on sewing some furs together. And then you go back and you check on the meal and throw the next piece in. You throw the carrots in, or you throw the potatoes in, or you go find a few herbs out near so you're doing a very cyclic, what I call cyclic serial tasking. And it looks like multitasking, but it's not. But we all do it. Mm-hmm. We all do it. And then we go in, a lot of us have over the years gone into professions, jobs that look a lot like that. Teaching looks a lot like that. Check on Johnny, check on Mary, check on Keisha, check on Colinda. You go from one child to the next, and then you're swinging back to check on Johnny, and you remember where Johnny was before, and you check to make sure Johnny's made some progress, right? Secretarial work, similar stuff. You're going from one task to another. Nursing, same thing. And these are jobs that women have excelled at. Not only are they the jobs we've been allowed to do, but they're jobs that we really excel at because they fit with what we do well. Okay. Along comes menopause. And this little area in your forebrain that's been doing this executive function of keeping you on track as to where you were with each task and remembering when you need to get back to which, stops being stimulated by estrogen because you don't have as much estrogen. So what happens? Now look at how you work, and you're going to Tina, especially you, are going to feel like it. Priscilla, you're going to start saying, oh, that's what's going on. So you go in and you start the spaghetti sauce. Okay, maybe you chop up the onions and throw them in the pan. You go in to move the laundry. You see that the trash can in the laundry room is full. You go and you grab the trash can from the laundry room, and you say, oh yeah, I need to get the basket out of my bedroom too. So you go into the bedroom, you put down this because you see that the way the light is reflecting, that the TV in there needs dusting. So you go and you get a dust cloth and you go into the TV room to dust the TV. And the cat runs by, and you realize that nobody's fed the cat this morning. So you go to feed the cat, and that makes the dog jealous, and the dog's got to go out. Now you go back into the kitchen, and the onions are burnt.
I feel seen. Oh my God, that's my everyday, Jeanne. That's every
Now
day.
you freak out. I can't do this anymore. Something's wrong with me. So you go to the doctor. Either your young woman doctor or your old man doctor.
And they think you have a brain tumor.
No, they don't. They think you have ADHD. And they say, oh, let's put you on this drug. And you don't have ADHD at all. It feels like it because now you're not, and by the way, because we're habituated to doing this, when you sit down to focus on something, you get pulled away, which you would have anyway, but you would have come right back to it. And you would have never lost your place. You would have never lost your place. Same thing happens with, there's some memory areas that are also triggered by estrogen. And so that piece of you that used to have this really great executive function around calendaring, so you never booked yourself in the same place twice, at the same time twice. I have another meeting right now that I completely forgot about when I told you I could meet it now. I put them off. But yeah, it happens to me all the time now, because if it's not in my calendar, I don't remember it. Part of my brain is no longer stimulated by estrogen, and so it doesn't work as well. It's also the part of your brain that keeps nouns. So when you walk into a room, and there's a charming commercial on right now where the woman's walking through the grocery store, and some guy says hi to him, and she's going, George, Fred, and then her friend says the name and she remembers it. That's stored in that part of the brain that's like this quick retrieval thing that allows us to remember, especially nouns. Proper nouns, as well as, what's the name of that thing you drain the noodles for the spaghetti in? What's the name of that thing?
Oh my gosh.
So this isn't Alzheimer's. This isn't ADHD. This is menopause. And so the trick is there's two pieces to this. Three pieces. One is to realize it. And that's why I talk about it all the time. The second is to maximize your hormonal levels in your body naturally, because there are problems with HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and it's a topic for a whole different show. But the third piece is to find the techniques and the ways to do things that avoid the problems. So not trying to do 17 different things while you're making dinner. Just go in and make dinner. Yeah, it'll take you a little longer. Yeah, the laundry won't get done right. But you won't burn the onions. Make sense?
Yeah.
I never used a calendar, except for really big things. I have to use a calendar all the time now. I
Yeah.
have to use note lists. Using those things and getting used to doing them. Making notes, if you really want to multitask, if you don't like finishing things all in one sitting, making notes about where you are and coming back to it. So these are all things I teach my clients. I also use hypnosis to help them boost their memory, and also to keep them from walking away from a task half done, because it's easier to do it now once. Oh, doorway syndrome, doorway effect. You know how you probably have experienced this now. You walk through a door and you say, what did I come in here? And like, that never happened to you when you were 35. You knew what it just didn't happen. Maybe once in a great while when things were really crazy, but most of the time you would walk through a door and things were fine. You knew exactly what you wanted on the other side. Your men always, they don't know why this is a problem for you, because it's always happened for them. It's part of that hunter thing. It's part of that. I walk away from one thing and I shut the door on. So when they walk through a doorway, they're in a whole new space. Now we are too. But it's frustrating for us because it hasn't happened before. This is why when I don't know, but when they're working on a task in the garage and you call them in to fix something in the house, they get really mad. It's because when they go back, they have to start over. That's how the masculine brain functions. The feminine brain knows where she left off, and we're better at it. We're still better at it than they are, by the way, but we're not as good as we were, and it's scary. Does that make sense, Tina?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
I have to say though, that the walking through the door thing and the walking off and burning the onions thing, that's been me my entire life, every day. And I got, over the years, anytime I was pregnant, it got really bad.
Pregnant brain does it too.
And then, but every day, my whole life.
Yeah.
And I learned to manage it. And I lost that ability to manage it any of those hormonal times. But then I got pretty good, and I write everything down. I have
She has a bajillion alarms on her phone.
Yes, I have so many timers that I have to set, write everything down. Everything's on a calendar. I have a to-do list. I have, thank God for iPhones, because I have the reminders set. So I have things pinging at me throughout the day. Take your pills, time to leave for school, time to do this, time to do that. And then over the last few years, it has become like all of my reminders, my calendar, it's not translating anymore. And I'm struggling. And like Fridays is podcast day. We are here. It's Friday. It's podcast day. But somebody will say, "Are you doing anything Friday?" I'm like, "No, I'm not doing anything Friday because it's a floating appointment. Me and Tina just kind of, what time you want to get on, you know?" And just like we have this thing we've been doing, getting together on Zoom with some friends and drinking a glass of wine on a Thursday night. And I forget all about it until Tina reminds me. And I'm like, oh, like, and
So
it's stuff we've been doing.
here's the thing. All human behavior exists on continuums. So you may be more on one end than on the other. So it may have always been harder for you, and sounds like it was. But you were managing, and then you do get the pregnancy brain. That's it. It's a thing. It's a thing. It's because your hormones are being allocated differently. They're being allocated to that baby growing. Make sense?
Yeah. And I've known I'm ADHD for a while. We didn't really explore the fact that that ran in the family until my nephew got it. And then he was on, I don't know, what was he on? I think he was on Ritalin. And then, yeah. And then Livia started having issues. Of course, Olivia's adopted, but recognizing symptoms in all of the rest of the family is what clued us in. And then my kids started having issues, and my oldest got diagnosed as a college student. So it was kind of wild. And the older I've gotten, like the more I've been exposed to information about it, the more I'm going, oh, that's me. And now it's like, it's wild and crazy.
So the other thing that's huge in terms of ADHD and the way we can handle it that does not require or minimizes the need for drugs, because the drugs, all drugs have side effects, except no drugs have side effects, because they're all just effects of the drug,
right?
But they're the side effects are the ones you don't want. And those are the kinds of things that get in the way of the rest of your life. And I can I'll tell you a story about a side effect of a drug that I've been on that I just had to take myself off of. But for ADHD, the other huge thing is sugar and toxins in our food chain and our environment. We have huge numbers of toxins and estrogen disruptors in our environment. One of the big places that happens for women is in makeup and self-care products. A lot of the chemicals in there are estrogen disruptors.
I have never heard that before.
Oh. So here's the thing. The US allows a list of about a mile long of chemicals in our makeup products. Europeans have a list about this long of things that they allow in makeup. Get European products.
Interesting. Wow, I never even considered that.
Oh, and the cleaners you use in your house, highly disruptive. Highly disruptive. The chemicals they spray on our plants, highly disruptive. If you are very sensitive to this, and it sounds like both of you might be, try going very organic, very clean. Get all of the clean products for cleaning your house. Make sure you're not spraying. One of the worst is fabric. Those dryer sheets, they're evil. They're just evil. They're cancer causers. And yet we allow those things in our houses and in our environments. So be aware of it's not my big area of expertise, but when somebody is particularly sensitive, the first thing you want to do is get rid of toxins, and then you want to get rid of as much added sugar as you possibly can.
Well, we've both been, Priscilla and I, and also AJ, we've both been on this weight loss journey, and we use the Weight Watchers app to manage our points and all, and it's been really great. And I know that I have felt better eliminating a lot of those sugars and the things that we were eating, starches.
If it comes in a package and has ingredients that you can't pronounce, leave it on the shelf. Leave it on the shelf. It's sad to say, but we've done a lot with our food. It's a good and a bad thing. So we've created a situation where we have food surplus. People shouldn't go to bed hungry in this country because we can raise enough food because of the way that we raise food to feed everybody. But in doing that, we've introduced some things that are really bad for you. Roundup, glyphosates, whatever they are. I always forget how to pronounce them when I haven't seen them in a while. But those kinds of things are terribly disruptive to our hormonal systems, to our brains, to the way we function. And it's making us sicker than we need to be.
You know, one of the things that Priscilla and I have, since doing the podcast, unlike you have a very focused topic for your podcast, you talk about menopause. For us, we try to share all kinds of things that are self-help, and sometimes it's just fun topics. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But one of the things that we've noticed is we always look to see what's coming up in the month. And so like the reason we invited you was because we knew that it was Menopause Awareness Month. And
World Menopause Day is next Friday.
Yes.
And I'll be the 18th of October. I'm sure that I just missed on when you actually release your episodes, but
Sunday.
I will be talking on World Menopause Day. I will be doing a Facebook Live, and then I'm doing several additional summits in the next month. So if this is a topic, and this is a topic for women that is not talked about to such a great extent, I know I'm watching your eyes get wide as I say things, and it's like, yeah, nobody ever said that to her. And nobody does. They think we know it, and we don't.
And that's what I was going to say. You know, one of the things that she and I have kind of laughed about was all the awareness days, you know, when we're looking at that calendar. But then we do one of the things, and Priscilla and I just talked about this recently, is like, how many followers do we have? Not a whole lot, but you know what? We are learning from the process of doing the podcast, and we enjoy it. We love hanging out together for any reason. But we were saying about when we start researching these different topics, we learn so much more than we were aware of, that we realize the need for awareness. And menopause for me is one of those topics that I've always believed. You know, AJ would tease me about, because I would say, oh, it's menopause. Oh, it's menopause. And he would say, I blame everything on menopause. And I know you wrote a book with your husband about menopause.
Where is my wife and what have you done with her?
Yes. Where is my wife
And
and what
it's
have you done with
because
her?
we change, and we change in terms of our relationship with it. There's a whole nother thing that we could talk about. I don't know. Do you want a 3-hour episode? But there's the way we relate to people changes, and it's together with that whole multitasking thing. But what we're doing when we're working that way, when we're in the middle of our child raising, we have to be focused on other people, not just our children, but also keeping, and we go back to hunter-gatherer, we got to keep that hunter coming home with the meat. Because otherwise we're just going to be eating herbs and it's going to be boring. We're going to be vegans. And by the way, humans were not designed to be vegans. If you're a vegan, that's great, but your body was not designed to be a vegan. Anyway, we're also designed to keep our sister tribe together with us, because when we are 8 months pregnant, there's a lot of stuff we can't do. When we are 4 weeks postpartum, we need help. We need someone helping us. And it's not going to be that hunter. He's gone. He's going out and doing his job. It's going to be our sisters in the tribe. So people pleasing, being aware of other people's emotions and how they're relating to us, is a survival skill for women during that time of life. So what happens is, and it's funny because it happens pretty regularly, and anybody who does menopause work will tell you, if you ask them what age it happens, they'll tell you it's 43. The average age for this is 43. And I don't know why, but I've had people say to me, well, no, don't go out and say that, because people think 40, 45, no, it's 43. Okay, it's not 43 for everybody, but if you spend time in the menopause groups, or you spend time in groups of midlife women, you'll see an awakening happen right around the age 43, in which they say, damn it, I've been people pleasing all my life. Why didn't anybody tell me I don't need to do this? You did. Back then you did. But now, and this is to me the gift that we are given with menopause. And it's the gift of being able to take our own passions, purposes, priorities, desires into the center of our lives. We've not been able to do that until we hit menopause. For most of us, again, continuums. But we get to put who we want to be right there in the middle. And then we get to decide. We get to decide, okay, AJ is in there, and AJ needs a lot more support right now. Okay, I can set my desires sort of out to the side of the center, because I need to support AJ right now. But I know they're there. And I know that when this is done, whatever this is, I can come back and put it in the middle of my life. I know I need to handle some crisis with my child, or some crisis with my job, or crisis in my community, or in your case, I just took over the district leadership of our Toastmasters district, and that's going to be my priority for the next year. And what you see is you get to choose. You make a conscious choice. Whereas before, it was just what you did. You took care of your children, you took care of your job, you took care of your community, you took care of the school stuff, you took care of your husband, you took care of your brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews, and you never had time for yourself. But then you hit this magic 43, and it starts to change. But now everybody piles the guilt on you for putting yourself first.
Mm.
Your kids say, Mom, I need my lunch. And you say, you can't make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Instead of running into the kitchen and making that peanut butter and jelly sandwich for you.
Yeah.
Your husband says, honey, where's my wallet? Where are my keys? And you say, you're a grown man. You know how to put your keys and your wallet in the same place every night when you come home. Do it. You don't have that same, I'm going to run find it. The biggest thing that I see happening, and this is perfect timing, holidays. Somewhere along the line, you probably got handed, one of you, maybe both of you, got handed the responsibility for the family holidays. You get to set the table, make the food, shop for the food, make sure that everybody gets invited, make sure that your brother's girlfriend isn't seated next to your sister's husband because they can't stand each other. You know, you're in charge of all of that. And you wake up one morning, and this isn't usually at 43, it usually happens a little later. You wake up one morning and you say, if I have to do one more holiday, I'm just going to scream. And you know what you do at that point? I say, I call it passing on the platter. You take the turkey platter and you find the most responsible, and I hate to say this, young woman or young man in your family. Okay, it could be a young man. And you hand it to him, and then you say, Christmas is yours this year. and you say, and I'll help. You come to me with questions. And by the way, I'll bring the sweet potato casserole or whatever. It's time to pass it on.
Yeah.
It's time to pass it on and be the matriarch, be the wise woman. And that's likely what happened. Let's go back to our hunter-gatherers for just a second. That's likely what happened in menopause. We are one of, I think it's 6 species that they've found right now with the true menopause. All the others are whales. Believe it or not. Elephants don't, chimps don't, apes, none of the great apes, none of our domestic pets often do because we've lengthened their lives artificially. But from a standpoint of animals in the wild, females do not outlast their ability to reproduce by any significant amount, except in these couple of weird pod-dwelling whales. And it's because the older females, the matriarchs, know the routes that they need to take at each part of the year in order to find their feeding grounds. So in us, and there's no culture in the world, there's no race, no ethnicity that doesn't have menopause. So it's a very, very old thing in humans. What it likely was not the ability to take care of other people's children. It was likely the knowledge of herbs and healing that the older women became the wise women of the tribe, and the healers and the herbalists and the ones who passed that knowledge down. There weren't many women hitting menopause because childbirth is dangerous. We didn't live that long. But if we got past childbirth, we lived a long time. It's true too of the men. If they made it through the hunting years, they lasted a long time. They became the wise men, the storytellers. The women were probably storytellers as well.
It's so fascinating. Yeah. Really is. Well, we want to honor your time, but before we let you go, what is the piece of advice that you have for everyone? And I want you to share like what you do when you're working with your clients, like how you can help women out there who need someone like you.
Okay, so my best advice is to begin as soon as you realize that your body needs support. And that's as so Priscilla, that's today. This is the time at which changing your habits, making sure that you're eating well and exercising well and de-stressing and sleeping well, all of those things get done for you starting today. Tina, that's also today for you. Probably was a while back when you decided to go through the weight loss journey. But what I mean is now if you're hearing this, it's today for you. It's realizing that the sooner you start, the better you'll feel. We want to give ourselves the right diet. And that doesn't mean that you have to when I say giving up sugar, there are still days where I grab a bowl of ice cream. Ben and Jerry's. I get the good stuff. I will still eat desserts on occasion. Okay, yeah, but I don't do it every day. I try and match my diet to what works for me. So when I said I eat more of a keto-based diet, some people do really well on a paleo or a Mediterranean or a vegan diet. Find what works for you. And so part of what I do with my clients is figure out what works for you. And there's hints of that in the way they live their life, but they're also trial and error sometimes. Does intermittent fasting work for you? Intermittent fasting is simply a way of eating, not what you eat. So you put a way of eating with what you eat, put it together, and that's really what's going to work best for people. So some people work best on that 5 or 7 small meals. Don't go near it for me because that's just not going to make me happy. But it makes some people happy. They're grazers. They love it. So we find the way they like to eat, put it together with what they eat, and that's the diet. Exercise. So exercise is super important for us. It changes the way we think about our bodies, the way we feel in our bodies, and the way our bodies work. Stress. We have to get rid of stress. We can't get rid of stress. We have to learn to manage it. So big piece of what I do is stress management. And the place I usually start is sleep, because so many of us aren't sleeping well. Now, how do I do that? I do it a lot of ways. I do it with knowledge, because we don't get the knowledge we need. You've gotten a bunch of knowledge today. I do this kind of brain dump with my clients all the time, where they'll say something and I'll try and explain it to them so that when you go into it, you have some knowledge of why this might be happening. And it stops scaring you. And it gives you some place to go to look for a solution. So if you know that you're going to have a hard time multitasking, or this is why you have a hard time multitasking, you go look for a solution to that says, okay, this is how I can get through my day and do what I have to do. So knowledge is one. Techniques is one. So a lot of stress management is techniques. But then the big things I do are hypnosis and what's called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and timeline therapy to remove trauma. We didn't talk about trauma, but trauma reemerges at this time of our lives because we're being more introspective. So I work with those 3 tools, and I also work with Reiki healing, which is an energy modality of moving energy through our bodies. It's very woo. I can't explain how it works. I just know it does work. So I work with all of these modalities to find the way that a particular woman works best. And then we build her habits through habit building techniques, which don't work really well, but they work really well in conjunction with the NLP and the hypnosis. So if you're one of those people who says, okay, I know how to eat, I know what I want to eat, what I should be eating, how I should be eating, I'm going to start on Monday morning, and Monday morning you start and you're great until Wednesday noontime when somebody walks into the break room with cupcakes for Susie's birthday, and then you're done for the week and you start all over on Monday morning. This is because we don't understand how willpower works, and we rely on willpower when it's just not an adequate tool. That's when the hypnosis and the NLP come in to help us build those habits we need. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well,
so I work I do work mostly one-on-one. I do some small group work together with people who are working on the same thing. But really, a lot of it has to be one-on-one, because what's the reason, I mean, you 2 are sisters, so you may have a lot more in common, but the reason that you can't, and I'm making an assumption, I know you're doing really great on this eating program, but the reason that you may be failing may not be the same as the reason somebody else is failing. Mm-hmm. So yours might be emotional, and theirs might be that their diet isn't correct for them, that their body isn't getting what it needs, so it's asking for something else.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe Priscilla is just simply a sugar addict, and by the way, that's a physical addiction. That is a physical addiction.
I believe it.
And it has to be dealt with as a physical addiction. And then somebody else may have given up smoking, and then they can't stop putting something in their mouth because they'd rather give up the smoking. Okay, so all of those things have to be dealt with individually. So that's how I work with my clients. I do a free consult to start, and you come in, we talk about what's going on with you. We talk about whether it's menopause or whether it might be something else. And then I help you lay out what it is that you want to do. And then we make a decision. Does that make sense working with me? Does that make sense reading a book? Does that make sense going to something else? Does it make sense to just have a few hypnosis sessions? It's very individual. And once we set that consult up and go through it, we can figure out what's the best strategy for you.
That sounds really interesting. I'm going to share all of your links in our show notes. Your main website is menopause.guru, correct?
Yes.
So if you're just listening,
yep,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are at menopausebooks.com. And if you want to set up a consult, it's talk to Jeanne, which is Jeanne down here in Louisiana. It's Jeanne elsewhere in the world. So head over there and you'll find an ability to set up an appointment with me. And that is
awesome.
A free consult.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great getting to know you a little better, Priscilla.
Oh, likewise. Likewise. This has been fascinating for me.
Definitely. All right, Jeanne. Well, maybe we'll have you back again sometime in the future, because there's so much more I know I would love to ask you.
There is so much to be talked about with this. study continually on this stuff, and it's a never-ending supply, and we don't even research some of the stuff that needs to be researched.
I believe it. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much.
Thanks.
Oh my gosh, I could talk to Jeanne for hours. Oh, she's so interesting.
I definitely want to
learned a lot.
hear more from Jeanne. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I need help.
Well, I would encourage everybody to go listen to our podcast too. We didn't talk a lot about her podcast. You mentioned the one episode that you were interested in. But yeah, so we're sharing all those links in our show notes, her website link, her link to make an appointment and all that. That's going to be in our show notes. So look for that. And yeah, that's exciting. And after we stopped the recording, we did talk to Jeanne some more about hypnosis and some pattern behaviors and the like. And she's agreed to come back and be with us in 2025, early next year. And we'll delve into that some more. So that should be a really interesting episode. I'm looking forward to that.
Long from now. It's not that long from now.
No, I know. And I need Jeanne to help me with some of my neurotic behaviors. And get me to change my way of doing things. So that was great. I loved it. All right.
Yay. Well, can you give us something to marinate in this week,
Oh, yes, I can. So you and I talked about this past week, but I want to share it with our listeners too. Had this really weird thought the other day. So, you've been going to physical therapy for stuff, and I started going to physical therapy a couple of weeks ago for my back and also occupational therapy for my hand. When I fell quite a while back, I hurt my hand and then fell again recently when I was at the doctor waiting to see the hand people. And I ended up hurting my back. So now I'm in therapy for both. But anyway, I was sitting there thinking the other day, how you're so good about doing your little therapy exercises every day, and I'm terrible about it. And I thought to myself, I kind of rolled my eyes and I thought to myself, well, at least I'm going to the therapy appointments and getting some of the exercise in. And that seems to get you to healing. Although I have to say, for the record, that I've been working on that, doing my exercises daily. And I really only need to do them 3 times a week. So they're just hard. And physical therapy is hard, right? But you go to physical therapy, you do the exercises while you're there, and then they send you home and say, keep doing the exercises. And you don't always do that. But if you keep going to your therapy appointments, the exercises you get there will make you stronger and heal you somewhat. But if you can do it yourself, it's so much better to add that on. You'll heal faster and you will also be stronger as a result. And I have no idea except to say, I know this is because my brain works this weird way. But coincidentally, I was thinking about brick and mortar churches. We talk about that all the time, about how people are worshiping online and they're not going to brick and mortar churches anymore. And it's kind of a loss. And I think there's so many things that you and I both got out of growing up in a brick and mortar church that I don't think you can get from watching online. And a lot of that has to do with community, right? But I was thinking, comparing that to like going to physical therapy. So like you go to church on Sunday morning and you said it was like going and getting re-energized. And I was like, yeah, you go to church on Sunday morning for that. So this is kind of the opposite of watching church online. This is like, you go to church in person, but then you don't do anything all week long. You're not as strong as you can be. But going to church on Sunday morning kind of like gives you that healing that you need, even though you would heal a lot more if you practiced what you practice in church all week long. And so that's just a really random analogy, but it just clicked for me. And I thought maybe it'll click for somebody else, but just something for everyone to marinate in over the coming week. if you're not going to church physically in person, something to consider. And then if you are going to church in person, but you're not practicing anything that you practice in church during the week, think about that and think about how you can incorporate that. And you and I both talk about the Bible studies that we participate in, or the plans. And it's always good to have a good Bible study or a Bible plan that you're following to keep you in the Word every day. It's going to be a great weekend.
Yes.
Of course, this is going to air on Sunday, so the weekend will almost
Our weekend will be, yeah, your weekend will be almost over, but we're thinking about you anyway.
That's right. And so until we see you again for a very special episode, but I won't spoil it, next week, make yourself a priority.
And take care of you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to keep up on all the latest sauce. See you next time.